What up, what up, what up? Back at it again. Real Fans Podcast. I got all the boys in the house. That's JoJo right there. He's eager to get to the mic. What happened?
JoJo cut you off.
Yes, sir. Listen, man, I'm excited to be back. That's it. Yeah. We're out here. We're ready to talk sports, man. Listen, now I got to listen, sit here, talk to Julian, rant, for an hour about soccer. But it's all right, man. Like, hey, listen, this is what we do. This is why we get together on the weekend.
Taking up the country, man.
For you guys. You know what I'm saying? We out here with the boys.
We're in the doldrums of summer. It's hot as hell outside. Okay, we don't got much to talk about.
Record temperatures.
We're ramping up for football. It's hot out there. If y'all are going out to pregame season, you carry an umbrella and some water.
I will say,
but yeah, let's talk about the major thing. What's up?
It's not on the topic sheet, but the Jaguars finally opened up the brand new training facility to have people to watch. Bro, it is a world of difference. Like, people being able to they can actually have locker rooms and offices outside of the stadium. So I know we talked about a couple weeks ago that they're going to renovate the stadium and everything. First step was pretty much getting the team out of the stadium, getting the offices, getting the training facilities, the gyms, all that stuff out of there and into the personal, into its own facility. So now the players have their own facility inside. They have an indoor and an outdoor, but then most importantly, the fans have shade with big ass fans right above them. Because before it used to just be basic ass metal bleachers that you would see at whatever high school. And it'd be sweltering heat, 95 degrees in fucking North Florida, miserable, muggy. Now, the brand new facility, one, looks absolutely beautiful. You have multiple fields, an indoor field for when it's raining or if it's just too damn hot. And then the gym looks sick. All that stuff looks sick. But then, yeah, my friend went. He said it felt great. Went there in the morning. It was packed out. It's almost impossible to get a ticket because everybody wants to go. There also more seating. That's just, it's 3,000 people or something like that. But yeah, fully covered. Those massive warehouse industrial fans. So you got to too. This summer getting record heats and record highs every fucking day.
The fans are probably more excited to see the new facility than the team you got on the field there. But that's just my opinion.
Oh, people are excited to see the new team too.
That's just my opinion.
Listen,
everybody's saying Calvin Ridley's balling.
We got plenty of time to do pretender contender.
Whatever it takes to reel in the fans. Nah, that sounds dope. All right,
Gabe. Yeah, it's honestly, I gotta check it out.
Let's get into it.
I haven't checked out the Dolphins one either, but Gabe.
Wait, they have a new facility?
Well, they moved it. They moved the facility from Nova to the actual stadium itself. So it's right next to the stadium. The practice field is right next to the stadium. But it's not. Yeah, it's not covered though. But it's covered? Brand new. No, it's not covered.
That's lame.
I don't know. I'm not sure about the. Hey man, listen, it's that Miami Heat. We'll see when Josh Allen has to come back down and complain about being in the sun again, because we're gonna be ready.
That's so stupid. Steven Ross has so much money, bro. Just put a fucking shade over it.
Listen, man. For the fans, yeah, but for the players, it gives you that competitive edge that you need, right?
No, I'm talking about just for training camp. It's just training, people go visiting, because you can watch the training camps and shit. Fuck, bro, give the fans some fucking shade.
For the fans, I definitely agree. I don't want to stand out there in this 100-degree weather. Hell no.
I get it's early as fuck in the morning, but bro, it's getting hot early as shit. Bro.
We're already going to Marlins games with a dome.
Gabe wants to go to the first topic. Gabe, bring us to the first topic.
Listen,
Gabe is tired of Julian's rant. I told you guys. I already warned y'all at the beginning of the episode that we have to listen.
Gabe's getting. He's like, I gotta talk. I got it.
He said,
"Let's talk about the
topic list for no reason."
Hey, just keep on cutting off Gabe. Just keep on cutting him off.
Just keep cutting me off. Keep cutting. I'm gonna let you guys rock because I don't know how my internet is going right now. It's a little slow. I'm not hooked up to the Ethernet right now, so I'm a little delayed. Let's talk about the biggest new.
I'm just kidding. Go. Okay, we'll get to it.
All right, let's get it, guys.
Biggest news of the summer, NCAA. Obviously, they're having a huge realignment. We're talking about football as we're coming up into the fall season. We're talking about NFL, but also college football's coming up. And this is probably the biggest news, the biggest movement that we've seen. All these colleges and teams trying to grab dollars, grab TV dollars, grab attention. And just been a huge movement in the NCAA. I have thoughts on it, Julian. I'll let you rock a little bit because I know you're definitely more of our college football watcher than I. I have my opinions, but I'll let you go first. What's your thoughts and opinions on NCAA? All these teams, these Pac-12, it ain't 12. This 10, it ain't 10. It's like 16. It's crazy. You have to do rebranding, renaming of these conferences. But Julian, I'll let you go off on all this realignment in NCAA.
Yeah, so no longer the Power 5 conferences anymore, it seems like. It's definitely going to a Power 4. And yeah, I mean, this is all coming off the heels of the news that Washington and Oregon are officially leaving the Pac-12 to attend the Big Ten Conference. So I'll recap all the movements so far. So the big one, obviously, is Pac-12. So Pac-12 has lost Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah, and I believe those are going to set place in 2024. Yes. Just double check. Yeah, 2024. But Oklahoma and Texas will officially leave the Big 12 in 2023 of this year. But the Big 12 will add BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF to supplement some of the losses that they had with Oklahoma and Texas leaving for the SEC. Now we have Washington, Oregon, UCLA, and USC going to the Big Ten to help strengthen up the Big Ten as well. This leaves the Pac-12 with just 4 teams remained going into the 2024 season. And I can pull up the graphic here, actually.
Man, they might have to start recruiting, bro. FIU, get FIU out of Conference USA.
Yeah, and then we're going to go to the Pac-12, the Pacific teams. But let me pull this up so you guys can see.
I mean, if you really look at it, though, with these conferences, a lot of these schools are going to have to travel more now that they're in a different conference, which is going to affect, I feel like, play on the field, not just for football, but you got to think of other, sports that it's going to affect.
Yeah, so if you guys are watching the visual podcast, you guys will see that I have it put up of basically kind of the realignment and the movement of it. But yeah, I mean, go ahead, Gabe.
I was gonna say, I mean, that's one thing that I've heard in part of this discussion. When we look at like how the groups were made, obviously they were made for like convenience, right? Because we talking about early college like travel. Absolutely. You make the Atlantic Coastal team is going to be all the teams on the Atlantic coast. And we're hearing rumors about teams wanting to move and stuff. So, in the early times of college football, it was out of convenience of travel convenience. Now it seems like with the amount of money that's being poured into NCAA with, whatever betting coming up and all this stuff, now it's crazy because now they're moving entire schools with entire teams of entire sports, like JoJo was saying. Like, now the swimming team is gonna have to, the Washington swimming team is gonna have to Indiana, or Michigan is gonna have to go to California, whatever. All these teams are gonna have to be moving and traveling.
Jersey, you know what I mean? For a track meet, like.
And I've seen, and I've heard discussion. I don't know if we can get into it, Julian, if you want to talk about it. But I've heard it was like they should just make football separate. Football should be separate, a separate conference, a separate kind of thing from the other sports, because it doesn't make sense to have all these teams traveling across, because now you're going to have to carry all the sports, because now as a school, as an entity, you're carrying all the sports for that school, whether it be baseball, whatever, track and field, golf, whatever. They're going to have to be traveling cross country to make all this movement. So I don't know, Julian, if you want to get into that, or Georgia, you want to jump in. That's one discussion I've seen is like how crazy it is.
I mean, I definitely disagree with that aspect, you know what I mean? And everything's falling through, like with the football teams, right, through a university. Obviously that pumps the revenue, they get these media deals, but it's not fair for the rest of the student athletes who have to find balance, right? If you have to prep for a track meet, but you have to travel, to the other side of the United States, in which you normally do not, right? That's a different preparation. The students have to study, they have exams, they have classes as well, right? So football, I mean, granted, you play once a week, that might not be the case for other sports, or the teams for that college. So I think kind of sucks that they have to follow what the football program decides to do, right? And this can, lead to, athletes who are getting scholarships to change their minds, right? And decide to go to other schools just because they're switching a conference, which can make a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, as for the travel,
another aspect I'm looking at,
I was going to say, as for the travel, I mean, looking at this, it seems like the biggest, okay, for the Big 12, honestly, it doesn't look that bad outside of UCF. UCF seems like the big farther one. The Big 10, I mean, obviously the 4 Pacific Coast teams, that's a big jump, especially if you're talking about going from like USC all the way to Rutgers in like New Jersey, like that.
Exactly.
That's probably the biggest stretch. ACC still is about the same. It hasn't really changed too much. And the SEC, I mean, you're adding Oklahoma and Texas. Texas kind of fits in there because I mean you already had Texas A&M, and that's not too far away. And then Oklahoma is kind of the farther one. But I will say, I mean, if you guys are talking about the other sports, I mean, joining these other conferences, obviously there's going to be financial benefits to this. This is part of the reason why these guys left. And I mean, if part of the money's going towards helping maybe the lower division, not the lower division, but the other sports across the university that don't have as much funding as like the football or basketball team or maybe even the baseball team. I mean, I don't know how those structures work, but maybe there's some sort of like, maybe the football and basketball team helps kind of support the other ones.
I highly doubt that.
I don't know.
I mean,
but I think they've thought about these things. Yeah, and I mean, and I think nowadays I don't know if these schools have private charters or how exactly it works, but I mean, at the end of the day, they only play 13 games, so I'm sure there's openings for like maybe the plane. Like I don't know exactly the deal, but I'm sure they've thought this through some way or another in regarding other sports. But I want to say though, football conferences don't necessarily line up with the other conferences. I want to say I'm not entirely sure about that, but for some reason I think it is a little different in some aspects of it. But I'm not entirely sure that.
And what I want to bring up, what you kind of mentioned, Julian, earlier, is like football kind of subsidizes the other sports, right? Football's so big, which is why I started off talking about like how football should like be its own separate thing, because they're throwing the world. It's kind of like this kind of realignment thing. I think it's going to be kind of run up. I don't think we're going to see the end of this realignment. I know there's talk of like the ACC. I know they talked about FSU trying to get out of the ACC and grab money, but they're stuck in like this long contract that they signed with like ESPN for the ACC network. So there's teams that are also trying to grab, but for them, for like FSU, for them to get out of their contract, it's going to take so much to go to court. And even if you go to court, you still sign this contract with this entity, with the ACC network and ESPN, that probably most likely it's not going to happen going forward. Like they're going to have to be stuck for a while. The ACC is going to be stuck for a while.
So Gabe, I want to break something up. So the biggest reason why these schools are able to leave the Pac-12 right now is because they weren't able to agree to a media deal to keep everyone in place.
Yeah, I think
other conferences and make some money for the schools.
Yeah, and the thing I think that's what I've heard a lot of conversation about is this is probably, they've talked about the Super League. Julian, I know we on the podcast we talked about the Super League before, and this is probably going to push that, right? These teams, they're making these moves, and it's going to be a lot of these big schools, which think of the top 10, 15 schools that always make it to the playoffs, that are always in everything, in football, basketball, baseball, whatever. These top teams just saying screw the SEC. Why do I need the SEC? I'm Alabama. I am whatever. I am UConn. I don't need a conference to kind of secure money and these dollar deals. Like we can just go on our own and make our own Super League, and then this is be like the Super League and then the rest of college. So it's kind of crazy right now. I'm going to see, I think we're going to continue to see stories of teams trying to get out and trying to leave and remaking these super PACs. Kind of crazy. And I don't know, it's kind of nuts. Like I said, football subsidizes the other sports, and I don't know how this is going to affect the other sports. Football is going to be fine. You know, USA, America, we love football. Everybody's going to watch football. That's not going to be a problem. But I feel what I feel for is the other sports that, whether it be college baseball, softball, soccer, golf, all these other sports, these swimming. I think they might get lost. We might see a lot of teams like start losing their programs because if they're not able to, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it gives these other sports attention, right? Because they're signing big deals with these big schools and they get more competition, and you're in a big conference and you get more eyes on smaller schools, smaller sports.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure.
I don't think it's going to be an issue. I think they're going to figure it out. I don't think as for the other sports, I mean, there's been teams doing there's from smaller conferences doing just as long as travel as some of these teams. I mean, freaking University of Hawaii is in the Mountain West and always has to travel back and forth across to the island, to the mainland. So, I mean, I think, and then if these schools are moving to bigger conferences, obviously there's going to be bigger money, bigger media deals. They're going to be making more money. I think they figure it out. But let's switch to a sporting aspect and a competitive aspect. I mean, do you guys? I personally like the competitive aspect of now the Big Ten is going to be a lot more competitive. The Big 12 is going to be a lot more competitive. It seems like though the ACC and the SEC are going to kind of remain the same because I mean Oklahoma might kind of push that.
Could you actually put up that graphic again?
Yeah.
So I can see the team.
I think Oklahoma. So I think Oklahoma's going to try to it's going to make it a little tougher. Texas has still not have been good in almost 2 decades now. Texas is not
overrated the last few years. High expectations, but they're not really.
I mean, they are.
You're talking football.
UT
football.
Yeah.
Football.
Yeah, I'm talking football. Yeah, and we're talking UT, but as for I think Oklahoma might add a little bit of competitiveness to it, but it seems like ACC is still going to be kind of ran by Clemson. I will say we're starting to see the downfall of Alabama, but obviously Georgia's going to take that reign of being the highest school, which my only concern is the SEC and the ACC top teams like Clemson, for example, and like Georgia, are they just going to continue to run the table because they didn't really add anything in their conference? Meanwhile, Big 10 and Big 12 got tougher, so they're probably going to get more losses under their record, and then therefore they don't make the playoffs. But that might all change when they officially expand the playoffs. Maybe you take into higher consideration. Well, it's
higher level of competition.
He played in the Big 12. It's a more competitive conference than playing in the SEC, which I think that might be the only way to really kind of. I feel like all the other conferences, their way to attack the SEC is well, look here, we're playing in a more competitive conference. We're that's maybe you tell recruits that hey, you could tell. GMs when you're potentially able to get drafted into the NFL, I played in the Big 12. This is a way more competitive conference than the SEC. The SEC is just a one-man show.
Like when UCF went undefeated and they got no respect and they didn't even get considered to make the playoff, right? And they won their bowl game and everything, but they were considered in a weak conference and no one.
I mean, we're starting. And the thing too is they're starting to get the ACC is starting to get that almost. The ACC has been pretty weak for years, especially since has fallen, Florida State has fallen, Virginia Tech has fallen, North Carolina has kind of fallen a little bit. It's really just been a one-man show at Clemson, and now a lot of people are looking at Clemson I mean, the ACC is not as strong as the SEC, and I think the Big 12 and Big 10 are look. At the end of the day, SEC's got the most money right now. They have the biggest stadiums in the country. They're pulling in the most viewers. I feel like the only way we can compete is if we just pull together a more competitive conference that people would want to see more. Because, I mean, I think I can speak for the three of us. The reason why we probably don't watch college as much is it's just not as competitive. And
I'm tired of seeing teams win 54-6. In a college football game. I don't know if you guys enjoy that.
And I get that half of your season is non-conference teams and then the other half is conference teams, and you might not play everybody in your conference in the season, but I mean, obviously the more strong powerhouse teams you put in that conference, those 6 games or 7 games that you're going to play in conference, those are going to be tough games. So I think that Pac-12 kind of saw the writing on the wall, which is crazy because I would say maybe 10 years ago, Pac-12 was easily the second best conference in the country. it was the SEC and then it was Pac-12. I mean, you're talking about the height of Oregon and USC and Stanford and all that. I'm curious to see. I did just read something that the Mountain West is considering consuming the last 4 remaining teams of the Pac-12.
Oh wow!
I can see that for an Oregon State and a Washington State, because those teams have always kind of been the bottom feeders of the Pac-12.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a world where Stanford and Cal go to Mountain West. Stanford and Cal's one of those two colleges, those two programs are going to get picked up, and Pac-12 will eventually just completely disappear. But yeah, dissolve. So I see Stanford and Cal are leaving. I think they're already looking for ways to get out. And I could see Oregon State and Washington State going down to Mountain West.
And here's the thing:
they probably don't want to, but no one's probably going to want them.
Another aspect that I learned, about this TV acquisition stuff is, the people trying to buy rights, because a lot of it is regional, right? We're talking about regional TV. Miami FSU, ACC is a big conference driver, whatever, but that's 2 teams in the same state, right? Or so that's why you don't see UF. UF is in the SEC, FSU, Miami's in the ACC. So a lot of it is like TV deals. They want regional TV deals, so you don't want too many teams in one state because. As far as TV rights go, like you're splitting money between whatever 3, 4, 5 teams. If you have teams in the same state, so that's why you see a lot of Oregon, Washington, California, or New Jersey, whatever, Pennsylvania, Ohio, different teams like that. So I don't know how that's going to shake out for them. And again, we're talking about splitting money amongst teams or schools in the same state, and we're also talking about splitting money amongst different sports. So that's why I wonder, like, how is this going to shake out for other teams or other sports and with this kind of shakeup. So and like I said, the conversation I've seen is going to probably push to a super league, which I can kind of see. But I don't think it's going to happen within the next couple of years. There's going to be more realignment the next couple of years, but within like 10 years, I think it's going to be super league. Like all the best teams, it's so dense, it's so condensed, all these teams. And you only have 13 games, and how can you have 18 teams in one conference playing 13 games?
No, I mean I get you, because because say if like what I said happens, Stanford and Cal leave and stay within a Power 4, which is the realistic option. Who's going to really pick up Oregon State and Washington State? And now you just eliminated 2 teams out of a Power 5. Now that's 2 less teams that are there. Granted, you can say that they lost their Power 5 standings for UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston and BYU moving up. So then you could say, well, we brought in 4 more teams that weren't Power 5 teams are now going to be Power 5 teams, and we eliminated the 2, that almost like promotion relegation kind of aspect of it. I guess Jojo, do you think it's going to be better from a competitive standpoint for college football? Do you think it's going to make it a little bit entertaining, like watching Big 10, Big 12 games more frequently?
Yeah, now actually going over it and diving deep into these scenarios, I really do think it is, right? I mean, it's uncomfortable, but we did need a switch up. Now, I do have a question for y'all. Is there any chance that this conference can actually add teams from weaker conferences to save it? Or do you think it'll completely dissolve once we get rid of these last 4 teams?
Pac-12?
Yeah. Do you think they're going to add or start recruiting, or it's a little too late?
I think it's too late. I think the Pac-12's done. I think the Mountain West is probably chomping at the bit right now, and they're we could probably be kind of you eliminate one, another one's going to rise, and maybe the Mountain West could eventually become a Power 5, or maybe honestly, the Mountain West would probably be the 6th best. I can't imagine any other conference really being as good as they are.
Going back to your question, I do think it can increase the level of competitiveness, but also depending on the schedule, right? Because obviously all conference teams don't play each other, but if we don't get those key matchups that we want to see, it's is it really worth it switching conferences and doing all that if they're not going to play?
I think that's the goal.
Each other.
Because if you're I forgot the number, but if you're mandated to play a certain amount of teams in your conference, I mean, a lot of these teams, let's say the Big 12 and Big 10, like these are competitive teams in your conference. I mean, so for the Big 10, I mean, UCLA, Oregon, USC has been down the drain, so has Washington. But I mean, Oregon's been a strong team. Indiana has been really good as of recently. Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. I mean, Michigan State. Like these are teams that have been playing well, and now you're just throwing in 4 more big programs. Maybe they're not playing well as of now, but these are still like UCLA and USC. Like these are still like historic programs with a lot of money and a lot of stuff. They're just going through a rough spot, but they could eventually become a good team again and be a powerhouse. So I don't know. Like it's a weird thing, man. I think it's genuinely going to be better. I think you're still going to get the same old with the ACC and SEC, but I think the Big 12 and Big 10 are really going to try to strengthen themselves because I think they both needed it too. I mean, especially the Big 12. The Big 12 was really starting to lag behind and really starting to fall apart. And now they're adding 7 new teams. And say they get a Stanford, now you're talking about 8 new teams. Because, I mean, the Big 12 saw what was happening. Big 12 was really kind of like struggling. They saw the Big 10 and the SEC really kind of holding it down with Ohio State and Michigan and obviously the SEC boys. But, yeah, I would love to see more shakeup with the ACC. And I did hear that Notre Dame is considering not being independent no more. So, wow. I know they've always kind of semi been like affiliated with the ACC. Yeah. But I've heard them talking about officially like joining, but I don't know if that's actually going to happen. But I will point this to you, Gabe. If the Mountain West is talking about consuming the Final Four, do you think the Mountain West will rise? The Mountain West did lose BYU, but you're also gaining a Stanford, Cal, Oregon State, and Washington State.
I think it's possible. I mean, those are still big schools. As far as the Final Four, it's gonna make it more interesting, I guess, for that sport. I think it's possible. Like those are big enough schools that, like, you know, the one thing I worry about is like, you know, the pageantry, like the rivalries, right? The in-state stuff. But when you have big historical schools like that, I think it's possible to make it exciting, you know, rivalries and games to watch.
Yeah, man. Well, what's up? What's next, Gabe? I think we've beaten this down.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into MLS because League Cup is going on, and obviously, you know, shout out to our sister podcast, Real Fans FC. I know a lot of people subscribe just to listen to Real Fans FC, and you know what? I appreciate you. Thank you for listening to 20 minutes of NCAA. We appreciate you, all the subscribers. But let's talk about MLS. Let's give a little taste.
All I have to say is thank God for now. I'm on the Messi bandwagon now for bringing us all this content here in Miami because this man's a cheat code. Like what's going on? Julian's gonna explain. I already know, but like I think this is ridiculous. And we all predicted this turnaround for Inter Miami, which it's insane to witness. But go ahead, Julian.
No, I mean, did you guys see the thriller of a game between Dallas and Miami?
Yes, they were down a goal, right? Didn't Messi tie it, and then it went to
wait.
PK,
so did you guys get the season pass?
I still haven't signed up.
Wow, you guys literally
I could get it for free too. That's the sad part. I'm almost there, bro.
And you know the thing too is Gabe was talking all that shit. He's like, "Oh, when Messi comes, I'm gonna watch. When he comes, I'm gonna watch." He's been here for about a month now, and still not, or news announced for about a month now, and still nothing. But no, I mean, honestly, it's been insane. The team is slowly getting better and better. They're adding pieces. Jordi Alba officially played his first full 90 minutes against FC Dallas. So we got the 3 old Barcelona boys back together, officially running full 90s, and 1 new young kid coming in. We're still waiting on the other 2, but they could potentially play not this upcoming game tomorrow, but the game, if they were to advance against Charlotte, they would play against them. But yeah, man, I mean, it's honestly been a really fucking wild ride. It's still just, it's insane, dude. Like, that free kick he had to tie up the game was just incredible. I mean, the dude hit it on the money, upper 90, top bends, absolutely fucking destroyed it. One of the best free kick specialists ever. And it's honestly been insane. But I guess give me your guys' thoughts from like an outsider perspective of like everything that's happening.
I'll say that Messi comes right as delivered, right? Whatever we thought that he was gonna do, like he's been delivering pretty much as far as performances. Like you think about the highlights, first game, second game, beating teams, and you know what? Miami at this point in the season, low expectations, right? Worst team in the league, whatever, bottom of the barrel. They're low. There's like nobody expects anything out of them, and for the fact for him to come and make it exciting in Miami and make it like must-watch TV, like you got to watch Messi now. Like he's how many free kicks at the end of games is he gonna make? Pretty exciting stuff. So he's I think he comes as delivered. Like whatever was promised, he's come as delivered so far. Jojo, I don't know what you've seen on your side.
Kind of same, right? What you're just explaining, but I don't think it's just him just scoring. I think it's how he's scoring. It's like, damn, like this guy's a god, bro. Like corner kicks, hitting in the edge of the net, like all this stuff. It's crazy. But obviously, he's playing on the talent doesn't compare to what he's used to, so it's still kind of unfair. But not our fault, right? I mean, that's the talent we have in the MLS. So I'm not sure if that's making him look even better or that's like just what the rest of the world always saw in Messi.
So I'm gonna say this because obviously it's been kind of going around like, oh, it's just MLS and defend. It's like, dude, did you guys just forget like the last 15 years of this man absolutely destroying La Liga and top European competition? Like people look at this and it's like, oh, Messi's scoring 2 goals a game, MLS is trash or whatever. It's like he's been doing that for over a decade. He's been making everybody look silly, like fools, and I don't understand how people can say that. But then he scores in 2012, he scored 91 goals in a season, in a full year, and it's like, dude, like he's been doing this to everybody. He's been doing this forever. And I think I will say this from like, as somebody who is an avid soccer fan or football fan, and seeing kind of the soccer hoopla coming to America, I will say, man, it's been not even a month yet since he's stepped foot on the field. And the way I feel like he has turned so many people, at least as of right now, like soccer fans, has been pretty incredible. And it shows that like here, how much we love greatness. And I think just people in general. And having him here, people are now watching and tuning in. Like soccer is I don't even know what the viewership numbers is because Apple's not telling, but it's insane. The amount of money that's coming in is insane. This is the biggest like needle mover in the history of this sport in this country. And it's been absolutely insane. The one thing that I do find annoying, though, is the amount of either ignorant or just like uneducated like people. And I mean, obviously, like I will say from the big news media outlets, not like everyday people, because obviously, like if you don't follow it, you don't follow it. But it's like, man, seeing some of like these like people at ESPN or whatever just talking about this, like, bro, you clearly know nothing. Why are you talking about like it's. Or bring on somebody who knows what they're talking about, because sometimes hearing people talk, 2 guys talk who don't, like, for example, like Pardon the Interruption, I think did a video, and I'm just like, dude, you guys are making my ears bleed. Like, what are you guys talking about? Like, you guys don't know anything. Or like listening to like I listened to like a clip of like the Dan Le Batard thing, and they're talking about like, bro, you guys don't know shit. And he says, you guys are just talking about this just to talk about this. It's like, bro, at least do some research. Like, come on, man. It's just like, gosh. But outside of that, I mean, it's honestly been really cool to see like people genuinely enjoy watching MLS and watching soccer and watching this tournament. It's been pretty crazy. And then like as for like on the field thing, to think that he's about to turn this team who has at the bottom of the table, granted that he hasn't played in regular season MLS play yet because we're in the middle of this Leagues Cup still, but
just the tournament, right? Yeah.
I mean, we're now entering the quarterfinals we win this game against Charlotte, you're now moving to the semifinals with a chance to get into the top 3. You qualify for the Champions League. I mean, getting to the semifinals, you're pretty much guaranteed for at least a third place match to then eventually get it. So, I mean, you're talking only 2 games away from like qualifying from this thing, or 2 games away from or 3 games away just from winning it in general. So it's pretty crazy. And I could pull up the bracket here because we're not going to have Real Fans FC here this week, but I will do a little bit of predictions for the people who wants, because I'm going to chop this up into a clip. But let me share screen here. Boom, boom.
Tell me NYCFC's on the other side of that bracket.
NYCFC has gotten knocked out by New York Red Bulls. They actually had a New York derby in the round of 32. So this is that's actually really small. Let me see if I can make it.
Yeah, so they postponed that Charlotte game. They were supposed to play Charlotte for the regular season, but obviously they're going to play Charlotte in
for the tournament.
Leagues Cup. Yeah. So their first game is going to be against New York Red Bull, I think the 23rd, August 23rd. So in a couple of weeks, they'll actually start playing MLS games. As long as, maybe if they keep winning, they don't play that game.
So I understand that they have a mid-season or in-season tournament, right? Obviously throughout the season, but so they pause all the games, like for the regular season until the tournament is completed.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is the first iteration of this new cup, because they're completely restructuring the Champions League, or now called the CONCACAF Cup. They're completely restructured it to where now this tournament, if you place in the top 3, you automatically qualify for that. And this is every team from Mexico against every team from MLS, World Cup style. We're in group stages. Then it went into a single elimination bracket. And yeah, I mean, the final 8 teams remaining is Philadelphia, Querétaro, Miami, Charlotte, Nashville, Minnesota, and then LAFC versus Monterrey.
So who are the
Miami
favorites?
got the... It's weird. According to Vegas, Miami is the favorites.
Oh, because of Messi, I'd assume.
Yeah.
Right now,
right now, the big matchup, who's probably going to make it to the final, would be this matchup between LAFC and Monterrey. Monterrey has been by and far the best team in this tournament. They have been one of the best teams in Mexico for years now. They have big money, a lot of quality, a lot of talent. LAFC, the reigning champions of MLS last year, made it to the Champions League final earlier this year, got knocked out. So you're talking about probably the best team in MLS and LAFC going against probably the best team in Mexico and Monterrey. So one of those 2 teams are going to the finals. I'm sure of it. I think Nashville, Minnesota, those guys are going to be fighting to make it to the semifinals and potentially get a 3rd place spot. I don't see either one of those teams surpassing either Monterrey or LAFC. And then on our side of on the Miami side of the bracket, Miami actually kind of had an easy run. The other side was pretty much like murderer's row. You had some of the top teams in MLS and Liga MX on that side of the bracket. Meanwhile, Miami side of the bracket was relatively pretty easy. I mean, the fact that Charlotte it's Charlotte is pretty weak team. Well, it's not even just the fact that it's MLS teams, but not even strong MLS teams. And then the only real super tough team on this side of the bracket is going to be Philly. Philly's most likely going to beat Querétaro. Querétaro has kind of been like the Cinderella team of this tournament. They are a bottom division Liga MX team. They're not very good. And the fact that they've made it this far is honestly kind of a shocker to everybody. But Philly's probably going to put in the work and beat them. Philly is the Eastern Conference champions of last year and one of the top teams in the East this year. So that Miami-Philly matchup is going to be a really good one. That's going to be a really good, tough match for Miami. That's probably going to be the toughest match Miami will face up until that date. Because I will say Miami so far hasn't really beat any like super strong teams. The first team, Cruz Azul, traditionally they're a top team in Mexico, but they're coming into the season. They lost like 4 in a row, 3 in a row. They haven't looked very good in the preseason, and then they came into this tournament not looking very good. So really, the big test is going to be once I have Miami as the favorites out of this Charlotte matchup to win and advance, and probably going to face a really tough Philly team. So I'm really curious to see how they truly match up against some of the top teams in the league. But I will say I still like Miami to advance and make it to the final. I think it's possible, and that's not even me being a homer. I think genuinely, like, the team has been really good. They're one of the teams to beat in the league. And then I see Monterrey pretty much making it to the final. I think Nashville's going to win the semifinal, the quarterfinal against Minnesota, advance to the semifinal. I think Monterrey is going to beat LAFC to go to the semifinal. And then Monterrey beats Nashville, makes to the final. You know, you're talking about a Miami Monterrey final, and honestly, I don't know. Yeah, and I mean that leads up obviously perfect.
You never know, especially right now. You know, he recruited his guys. Like you said, you got the 3 Barca boys, and the rest of the team is stepping up. Now, question: when is this game? Because I might have to tune in. That Charlotte Miami
8. Well, that's
8:30 tomorrow on Friday. We are recording this on a Thursday, and then 8:15, which is what, Tuesday? Next Tuesday would be the semifinals. So, I mean, I think Leagues Cup's going to want you. I think they want that Mexico versus MLS final. So I would be happy with the LAFC Miami final. That would be awesome because LAFC has just been a powerhouse, one of the biggest names. They pull the biggest players, one of the biggest names in the league. Like, it's like people know LAFC around the world. But I would like to see a Monterrey Miami, just that Mexico MLS thing. And I guess depending on how they play against Philly, like, I mean, I'm talking as if they already beat Charlotte, but like, say they beat Charlotte and then they play Philly. Depending on how they look that game depends on how I feel about how they would face in the final. Because, like I said, Miami, they've looked dominant, but they also haven't faced like crazy good opposition yet. Like, it wasn't like, I don't know if Miami makes it out if they were on the other side of the bracket, that top left side of the bracket, because that, like I said, that was kind of murderer's row. That was a lot of really good teams. But a lot of people are saying it's scripted. They want Miami to make it to the finals, so they gave them the easiest route. Buddy, that's not how it works. It's based.
Yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see what the writers have. Let's see what they wrote out. I know it's a writer's strike going on. We'll see what they got going on.
No, I mean the thing is, how this was set is completely based on your seedings and your placement last season.
Well, of course, yeah. But you know the casuals.
Listen, man.
They think it's
all about the end game. Avengers end game. It's all about the end game, man. We're just trying to get to the end. You know what I mean?
But yeah, I mean, if for whatever reason they don't get top 3, which I think they will, they also are in the semifinals of another cup that happens throughout the season in US Open Cup, which if you win that thing, like, you also qualify for the Champions League. So there's a potential they can win 2 trophies. It's just a matter of how much they're going to prioritize that other thing, because the big question coming out of this tournament is going to be, you're going to have a jam-packed schedule. The schedule is going to be super, super tight. And I know Miami, the goal is to make the playoffs. And I think they could make the playoffs because they would have to win 8 out of 12 plus a draw. So they would have to pretty much go unbeaten out of 9 games, like 8 wins, 1 draw, 3 losses, to have a chance to, because based on how the points line up. And the problem is the schedule is going to be super, super condensed. And how much can you play 90 minutes, especially with somebody like Busquets, who's really old, not the most athletic person. And then on top of that, MLS has to play because of this tournament, which is some of the reasons why people don't like it. They have to play through an international window. So Messi might get called up to Argentina mid-season and might miss some games.
That
could be detrimental. Yeah, so that's a big
RIP to the team if that happens. What do you mean? That will be detrimental.
Well, I mean,
yeah, and
I want to say RIP if they've been at the bottom.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, like I said, there's still other pieces that were added to this team. I think the schedule for the rest of the regular season is semi-favorable, and I think even with Messi gone, at the end of the day, it's MLS. You could still win, and I think they could. I mean, if the other talent is able to step up, and play well and play to their level, especially if you're keeping the likes of a Busquets and a Jordi Alba, and then you bring in these new young guys. If hopefully they can acclimate and play well, like you can still potentially win with him being gone. But it's also not just him gone. You're talking about obviously the new sensation that everybody's talking about, Robert Taylor. He might get called up. You're talking about one of our defenders might get called up. You're talking about a lot of players that potentially might get called up during this window that could really, really hurt. And that's the one thing that I really don't like about this Leagues Cup tournament is because now they're kind of forcing this tournament into the schedule. You're forcing a lot of things to condense and having games to have to play through international windows, which means
Miami
normally
has a lot of international players, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those players are probably going to get called up, depending. The one thing that makes me think potentially not is that, I mean, it's a September window. There's nothing really going on. Really, what they're going to play is friendlies. The thing is, any players from South America is going through World Cup qualifiers this window. So those are very important games. So Messi might get called up for those. As for the other players, they might opt out of it. They might not get called out because obviously like the season's really pressing right now. But as for like Messi and like our other player who's Ecuadorian who might get called up to the Ecuadorian team, those are pretty important games. Those are World Cup qualifiers. Obviously, like you need those wins to qualify for the World Cup. So that's my only thing that keeping me away from like truly saying they're going to make the playoffs because I don't know how that shakes out. And then also
it's realistic, right, to have those expectations. Now I can see that if you explain this more, to the picture, more to the story of what's going on, for the rest.
And then
of
I can show you the schedule too. Like the dates are super tight, man.
Yeah.
Bro, this sounds all complicated. Like MLS and soccer or football, like there's so much going on at once.
Because
I'm just like, does this happen?
Played everywhere all the time.
Like, does this happen
everywhere all the time?
I love
imagine
it,
in
dude.
the NFL,
It's
awesome. Patrick Mahomes, he might get called up to the Canadian League. So I don't know if he can go to.
Specifically, that's an MLS issue. MLS decided because of this tournament. Now, normally you don't. Club play stops during international windows. Club play stops. Players get called up. They go to their respective national team. But because of this, they're squeezing it in and all this other stuff. But here, I'll pull up the schedule right here. And let's zoom in a little bit. And you'll see kind of how tight the schedule is going to be.
Yeah.
So obviously the Charlotte game's getting postponed because one of them is going to advance, most likely Miami. This game was scheduled the day after what would be either a third place.
Because they thought Miami was going to lose.
Game.
That's why.
Third place game, or honestly, no one thought Charlotte was going to make it. But I mean, no matter what, if Miami advanced, they would have to postpone it regardless because the third place or the championship game would have been the day before this game was scheduled. So say they play the 19th. Now you're talking about 4 days later, you got your Open Cup semifinal, which maybe they don't take it seriously because maybe they already qualified for Leagues Cup. They qualified for the Champions League through Leagues Cup, so maybe they sacrifice the Open Cup so they don't have to because they don't need to win it anymore because the only way you qualify for the Open Cup.
They have two ways.
They have two ways to get in. You either win the Open Cup or you get top three in Leagues Cup. If they get top three in Leagues Cup, I'm really curious to see how they handle the Open Cup. Like, do they want to go for the double? You go for the double, you get the two trophies in one season.
Aside like just two trophies, but you still qualify for the same tournament.
Trophies, money.
Okay.
Well, you would get money. It would be money. Money's not that big. It would really just the biggest thing with the Open Cup is it gives you a berth. It qualifies you if you win the whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if Miami really cares at that point if they do it, unless they just want to win it for the sake of getting another trophy. Yeah. Which right now the trophy cabinet is pretty empty right now. So who am I in getting a double? Like, I mean, shit. If they make the final, they make the playoffs, and then they get the MLS Cup. Now you got a treble. You get the treble. You got 3 trophies in one season. That's something. But yeah, I mean, depending how that goes, you got the 23rd. 3 days later, you have New York Red Bulls at New York Red Bulls. 4 days later, you got Nashville. 4 days later, you got LAFC. Then you get a little bit of a break with a 6-day break.
6-day break
with Sporting KC, and then you finally get a full week. with Atlanta. So I mean, but then you go right back into 4 days later, Toronto. 4 days later, Orlando. and then 6 days later, New York City FC. So I mean, like, and then you got Chicago about 5 days, and then
running
you
around
got and another 3 days since
every game.
Yeah, and then another 3 days you got Cincinnati, and then you get a 2-week break with Charlotte. But that game up here got postponed, so more than likely they're probably gonna. I don't know how they squeeze it anywhere else. I mean, do you really want them to play the 14th and play Charlotte back to back? That'd be really weird to have them play back to back. But honestly, that's the only fucking window available is the 7th through the 21st. So it's really odd. But I mean, you guys wouldn't know because you don't really follow the league. But I mean, these aren't the toughest of teams outside of like LAFC. These are all and Cincinnati. These are all very winnable games, and I genuinely think they could potentially make the playoffs. It all just depends what happens in this month of September, where you have literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games in 1 month, which is pretty fucking wild. Especially since you traditionally only play once a week, sometimes twice. But yeah, it's pretty crazy.
We'll see, man.
I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm glad that you guys are starting to slowly fall in love with the world sport and the beautiful game. I hope to see.
I wouldn't say fall in love, but understand. Yes, I'm definitely starting to understand.
And I think we're just gonna slowly program and hypnotize JoJo because I know he would love it. I know he would. I know you would too, Gabe. I know you would too. And honestly, it's a great way to fill that summer. Yeah, I think I'm slowly, fans out there, help me out if you are fans as well. Let's slowly try to get these guys on board. I mean, you got the GOAT.
Yeah. You know what?
You got the greatest to ever do it.
I want to see it in the comments, man. Like you guys got to persuade Gabe and I, man, to try to fall in love with this sport. You know that apparently the world enjoys. So.
Yeah.
I tell you, man, it's there's something about you get people from everywhere. It doesn't matter how big, how small, where you're from. Like, there's always a player from somewhere. There's always like when it comes to like free agent stuff, it's just people from everywhere. You have this transfer market. It's such a complex thing, and just there's nothing like it, honestly. So I think that's what makes us captivate so many people. And honestly, just watching it sometimes, you're like, wow, like that shit's impressive. Like it's like, holy shit. Like how did they make that pass? How did they shoot that shot? Like how they, But yeah.
I feel like, you know what? I learned a lot of stuff today, and I feel like I'm growing. I felt like I had some real growth today. Me and JoJo had some real growth. You know what's not growing? The United States women's chance of winning a championship in the FIFA World Championship. Let's talk about the women's championship. We got to talk about this.
FIFA World Championship. God, sound like a noob.
Excellent transition.
Listen. Listen.
Oh,
man.
yes.
I had so many thoughts. I had so many thoughts, man.
Women's national team unfortunately lost in the round of 16. Was it round of 16?
They get to the
30.
Yeah, round of 16
or 32?
Round of 16.
16.
Round of 16.
16.
Round of 16. It's the earliest that they've ever been eliminated in tournament history. And, they're coming off of back-to-back championships, World Cup. Damn, Gabe, I know you were talking about his last episode that we're on, and you called it early. You were actually right, man. You're watching the games. Shout out to Gabe for watching soccer in general. And you were saying, man, you didn't like how they were looking. And it was not.
Shout out to Gabe for having a jersey.
Yep, that's.
Listen, I bought the jersey. I'm invested. Okay, I got. Listen, I'm gonna rant. I'm invested in this goddamn team and this World Cup. Listen, I got shit to say, Julian. I'm gonna let you go first. So far, like the women's appearance in the World Cup, I'll let you do that. You go.
Yeah. So obviously, like this exit has been a little. It's been a little weird. I mean, obviously, it's no hidden thing that a lot of people don't really like, or the stance and whatever the politic or whatever about the players and kind of what they've done throughout the past years from, a more vocal standpoint. So a lot of people are kind of happy to see them lose or disappointed or whatever. But we're not going to talk about that. But more so
from aside, let's talk gameplay. From
a supporting standpoint, I mean, from a sporting standpoint, I mean, honestly, I don't really like the antics that they were pulling pregame. I thought it was very like disrespectful to your opponents. I thought they were too cocky. They came out there like doing a fashion show, and honestly, the way they handled like that tie against Portugal with like them smiling and cheering, it's like, bro, like, what do you guys like? Are you guys going to take this shit seriously? Like, this is clearly not the strongest team that there's been in a while because it's in the position of going through a transitional phase in the program. You're having young players with old players, and it's like you guys aren't taking this serious. Clearly, other teams have noticed that, like, look, these other women have like worked their entire lives for this, and you guys are just kind of making a mockery of it. That's what it kind of seemed like to not just me, but to a lot of people. And it's like, take this shit seriously. Do your job, work, get that three-peat, man. Like, not mess around. Like, your job isn't to do a fashion show pregame. It's to play football. And it's like, take it seriously, because there's 16 other teams that made it past this group stage that are taking it very seriously and want to knock you guys down. There's nothing that these teams want more than to face the USA and knock you down. And I'm not even talking about just the favorites in Spain and England or Brazil, whatever. I'm talking about literally, I mean, they got knocked out by Sweden. And I'm sorry, that coach was atrocious. Megan Rapinoe should have never seen the field. She does not have it anymore. She was atrocious. And I think that's why a lot of people who didn't really like her in the first place was like, she almost seemed like she wasn't taking it seriously. Yeah. And like, I mean, how does a player who was one of the top players for the team, no matter how old you are, like, how do you, I mean, some of the things that she was she looked bad on was just technical things. It wasn't even like she was getting outpaced. It was like these technical things. And then that horrible shootout against Sweden, that horrible PK that she took was just atrocious. And then to take Alex Morgan out for her, Alex Morgan, one of the most clinical women ever in U.S. women's history, to take her out for, and I don't know, that coach is definitely gone. He had clearly no idea how to manage that game. He looked terrible. The team looked terrible. They didn't look like they took it seriously. And then I will say, like, the attitudes after the fact was kind of odd, especially specifically from Megan Rapinoe. She seemed very weird about the way she took that loss. It was very odd how she, like, smiling and, like, everything just seemed very fake. Like, I don't know. It was just, I don't know what your guys' take on that was.
If I may, I'm going to agree with a lot of what you say, not all of what you say. Honestly, about them coming up pregame, I do feel like there was an air of cockiness. There's an air of, we're the United States, we won 2 in a row. We're supposed to win. And that's great talk. You can talk about it, but guess what? At the end of the day, you have to play the game, right? You have to play the game and show up and perform. And, you know, JoJo brought it up. I talked about it earlier. I was like, yo, we're supposed to be at Vietnam by 7 points. We won by 1-3. I'm like, okay, game 1, 3 points. That's pretty convincing. Not as much as we thought. Okay, but whatever. A win's a win. Maybe, you know, game 1 jitters. We're just, you know, glad to be there, happy to be there. You go game 2, you go down, which, you know, we talked about. They had never been down since like 2011. Yeah. The United States women's team, and we have to score a tying goal. Okay, game 2. I'm still like, I was a little worried, but now I'm getting like, okay, well, we were supposed to win this game clearly, and somehow we're trailing and scoring. Then we go to the game where we had to tie with Portugal, and we tie, and you know, we get into the round of 16 not because of our performance, not because of excellence. We get in because some other team did poorly, not because of our greatness, not because of our dominance, our greatness. We get in because other teams weren't.
Oh, great. And mind you, good. Netherlands almost put up 7. Remember I said Netherlands could win that group if they put up 7 against Vietnam? I think they beat Vietnam 6-1. So I was almost close with that. Like, they almost did what they needed to do to get first.
They probably knew the math going in, and hence that performance. Like, they knew what it took to get to the next round.
So Julian, when you talk about the cockiness, the arrogance, I felt like the other teams, right? This is a passage, right? Because this is a mix of young players and old players. So Sophia Smith, I love her. She's like the second youngest person on the team. I think she's great, fantastic. You know, as far as the older players, I felt like there wasn't urgency. There wasn't an urgency of dominance. It's like, hey, you can't just be this USA team that says, hey, we're just happy to be here. We're USA. We're gonna win. We're the best. We're the best because we say the best and we believe we're the best and we're the best. And so off the field stuff, I don't care. I'm not concerned with that because there's no goals scored off the field. But on the field, like I said, there was no sense of urgency. Now the game itself, we had a lot of chances in the beginning. I felt like we had the most chances. There's a great save by the USA goalie that was close to they could have scored. But I feel like we had the most chances, but I don't feel like we capitalized. We weren't, besides going to PKs or whatever. I don't feel like we capitalized. I know they switched their tactics. I think they went to a 4-2-4. They used to do 4-4-2 or whatever, but they switched their tactics, which I was fine with. Lynn Williams was great. I felt like she was the fastest person on there. She's taller, bigger than whoever her defender was on that Sweden team. Faster, taller, bigger than any of her. She was a great substitution in that game. Sophia Smith, like I said, she's been great. Maybe she didn't have a great game that day, but I felt like we put great attempts on there. Julian, I'm not here's where I disagree with you. Morgan, a little washed. I'm just gonna say there's some passes. There weren't great passes to her, but
bro, Megan Rapinoe was atrocious.
There were some passes to Morgan. Actually, Morgan, there were some passes where I felt like she should have kicked a second gear to, these weren't great passes that she got, but I was like, okay, kick a second gear and get to the ball. And I was like, she has no speed. She cannot catch up. There's nothing there. To comment on what you said earlier about the coach, I feel like this coach is done. This coach is not coming back next year. He's not going to be the coach for. There's been a lot of criticism about his substitutions and his tactics. I feel like he's not coming back, and you know what? I feel like almost like this is good. Like, good for y'all. With all this, what I sense was cockiness, arrogance, whatever. Good that y'all got your ass kicked, because now you got the taste of bitter in your mouth. Now you know what it feels like when you suck, because all the other teams are doing pretty well. We saw Brazil go down, right? That one of the biggest upsets. One of the biggest things with the U.S. is like, there's a target on your back. And that's why I said there's no sense of urgency, because there's a target on your back. You're the two-time winner. You say you're the best. You're supposed to be the best. You have the best young talent. And everybody's trying to whoop your ass. They want to be the team to beat the USA, to beat the two-time champions. You know what I mean? To be the man, you got to beat the man. And guess what? USA was the woman. And that was like this urgency of like, very relaxed. There's like this relaxed urgency like, yes, we're the best. We'll just figure it out. It's kind of like saying, we'll just figure it out. We'll play the game and we'll just figure it out. We lost, we beat Vietnam by 3. We'll just figure it out on the field. We'll roll the ball. Yeah. We'll just figure it out when we get there. And then you tie a game, you go down, you tie a game. Oh, we'll just figure it out. It'll just happen. You'll say we're the best. We're just going to figure it out. And then you tie up 0-0 with Portugal. And, that's why I said it was kind of downtrending. I was like, we're not dominant. We're not as great as we say we are, as great as we were supposed to be, as great as our talent should be. So
and Gabe,
that was my biggest.
Hey, wait, real quick to carry on to Gabe's point, right? It's not even the fact that they got eliminated so early on, right? It was just the performances of each game, right? You're literally telling the story of each game and how we were downtrending and there was no dominance, right? Like, you just didn't feel that impact. Like, we didn't get upset. Like, no one pulled a massive upset and USA lost. Like, no, we just played terrible and lost. Like, that's just what it was.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, like, I don't mind it if a player's cocky. Like, that doesn't bother me. Like, obviously, like, I love Zlatan Ibrahimovic, one of the most cocky motherfuckers in any sport I've ever seen in my life. The dude talks so much shit. But there's a difference between talking shit and being cocky about your play and saying that I'm better than you than just being cocky and not even, I won't even say it cocky, but like, just like not like paying attention. Like, I don't know what the word is, but just like not giving it your all because you feel like you're so good at it. Like, there's like all the other antics and everything. It's just like, it just felt like you're not, there's a difference between like being cocky and taking it serious. I'm gonna whoop your ass versus being like cocky,
being nonchalant about it.
Yeah. And not taking it serious because you think you're so good. You don't have to take it seriously versus like Zlatan, one of the most cocky motherfuckers ever. And he would go on there and give 150% and whoop your ass and let you know that I'm better than you. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I don't mind the cockiness. It's the fact that you didn't take it serious that's what it felt like, at least. I'm not saying every player didn't take it serious. I just felt like some of the vocal leaders in that team didn't take it serious. And someone who seemingly was right this entire time, who's no longer a part of the women's national team anymore, is Carly Lloyd. She pretty much called this. She said that the culture and the way that things are set up in the inner workings of that national team, she just didn't see him going far. It was a highly toxic environment, from what I want to say she said. And it turns out she was pretty much right about everything.
Yeah.
And I mean, because if you think of it, you're making bets with rookies. It's like bets already been there, done that. They have their 2 World Cup titles. And, coming into the rookies, like, hey, you have the future ahead of you. Like, if you don't win this one, hey, you go for the next one. You still have time.
Yeah. And I will say, too, like, the world has caught up. It's not just Germany and USA anymore, like, especially recently in USA in the past 10 years. Like, it wasn't going to – and I don't know if they felt like they could just dominate for forever and it didn't matter. Like, at the end of the day, there's like, these other countries, it was just a matter of time when they caught up. Like I said, like, they've had this infrastructure and coaching and all this stuff built in through the men's side. All it took was them for just – the talent pool and allowing more women and making it more socially acceptable for women to play soccer in those other countries for them to catch up like that. And I think the reign of USA just absolutely obliterating everyone is done. I think it's done.
Real quick, and
I
to your
think
point,
every other league, every other country is already there. I mean, I saw in La Liga, Barcelona and Real Madrid Women's Clásico fill out a 95,000 seat stadium in Camp Nou. Like, the rest, and then you look at the Women's Premier League, that thing is doing really well. Like, the rest of the world is here to play. It's no longer just the USA. The USA had that advantage because they started first. Women were it was more socially acceptable for women to play soccer or whatever here in this country way before the other countries. But now the other countries are here. I mean, you have the Englands and the Spains. I probably have Spain winning it all. You might see an England-Spain final. I mean, that's what everybody thinks is what's going to happen. Quick note, one hell of a run by Colombia. Awesome to see them make it this far. Pretty insane. But yeah.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, the next round is pretty exciting. Tonight they play Spain, Netherlands is tonight. And then in the morning, Japan, really Sweden. Yeah, I think this next round is pretty exciting. If I had to pick an underdog to root for, I'm gonna root for Australia. I'm gonna root for the home dog. Nobody's cheering for them. So
host nation.
Yeah. But yeah, pretty disappointing. I think I'm because I'm such a casual soccer fan, and like whenever the U.S. men's play, I'm always like, man, I can never root for them because as great as these players are, or whatever we put they're still not they don't compare to international talent. But I was like, at least on the women's side, I can at least rely on they're great. They always win. They're the most winning, on an international stage, they win the most. And I just feel like it was just very disappointing. It's a disappointing failure. As much talent as we have, I just think it wasn't as dominant as we were in the past. And I hope that this bitter taste motivates them in the next chance we got. We got fucking 4 more years, so we got another chance for women to play. And I'm gonna root for the women's team more than the men's team because they've produced more, they've performed more, they've reached expectations, and this year it just didn't happen this year. I don't know.
Yeah, but the thing with the men's team, I will say, like, the men's team we're essentially playing catch up with the rest of the world, and they're getting there. I mean, 2026 is going to be a really monumental year for the men's team. I think you might see them go the farthest they've ever done. I mean, the talent pool for the U.S. men's team has been the highest ever. They're calling it the golden generation. So many players playing in Champions League level teams. The men's team's going to be good. Like, we're talking about all the other countries on the women's side, like having to play catch up to the U.S. I mean, the men's team is playing catch up to everybody else because, we disregarded soccer so much in this country for so long. Now it's finally starting to, like, really get the wheels turning. But I mean, Gabe, who's your favorite? Are you going for the reigning Euro champions in England, or you're going to go for probably the powerhouse of Spain?
No,
or anybody else?
No. It ain't coming home. I'll tell you that. If I had to root between England and Colombia, I'm gonna root for my Spanish people. I'm gonna root for my Latin people. It ain't coming home, England. I'm sorry. I don't care if you won the Euros. If I had to pick, like I said, if I had to pick underdog, I'm put Australia. If I had to pick overall, Spain is a favorite. I'll go with Spain. I'll go with the favorites. If I had to pick. If I had to put money on it, give me the favorites.
Not the Euro champs.
No, it ain't coming.
I'm with you. I think I'm gonna go with Spain too. I think watching the Spanish team play, they have been so good offensively. They look really, really strong. Like I said, I get that the women's team, the English women's team, just won the Euros last year, but this Spain team is built different. They're built to last. They're young. They're good. I think they might win it all. And man, yeah, if Colombia can knock off England, that'd be awesome. I'll be rooting for Colombia. They're the last American team left, so let's hope they can make it.
Hey, we represent. I'm trying to think of the colors. I think they have blue in their
yellow,
flag.
blue, red.
I'm not Colombian.
Yellow, blue.
They
red.
have a blue. It's like yellow, blue, and red, right? Isn't it? I don't know.
Yellow, blue, red.
Yeah. It's the only blue I'm gonna wear. I guess I got a root for. Hey, let's end it right here, man. Let's finish it off right here.
Yeah, it's a good part right now.
Middle of soccer. I feel like we'll talk about next week. Obviously, as we wrap up for football, we'll have more football stuff. Baseball trade deadline, we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but we'll talk about it more as we see how the trade results. I know there was a no-hitter the other day. The pitcher is pretty good. But yeah, Real Fans Podcast, we appreciate it. Julian, I know you're not coming out this week with Real Fans FC, but tell them where they can find.
Yeah, we had a little hybrid Real Fans FC with Real Fans Podcast, a little hybrid action. But yeah, same place as this podcast. Just follow our feed, follow our channel, subscribe, like, comment. You'll see when it comes out. And yeah, any final thoughts for you guys?
Listen, final thoughts. We didn't mention it. We're talking MLB next episode, but your boys are coming to town. Yankees versus the Miami Marlins 3-game stretch starting tomorrow. Catch me at the stadium.
Watch out, burger.
Catch us getting this sweep. I'm gonna bring the broom to the stadium. I'm just gonna walk over there, have it set. Yeah, man, good times. Let's get it. Yeah. Looking forward to that.
Real Fans Podcast on Twitter. Final thoughts. Disappointment, but you know what? There's other sports. I can get to other sports. There's more enjoyment. You know, maybe USA didn't do too well, but there's other things to talk about. We'll talk about more MLB stuff. Real Fans Podcast on Instagram, Twitter. We're on Threads. We haven't done any Thread tweets, but you know, you'll catch these threads.
So if you guys follow Real Fans FC, our boy Adam's gonna be threading all along. He's gonna be controlling the threads. Threading. So yeah, if you guys want to direct anything to Adam, hit him on Threads. Gabe with the Twitter, even though he's been non-existent with the Twitter. And yeah, I got a little pipeline going for Instagram, so we're gonna start getting our Instagram back up. So you guys be on the lookout for that.
Thank y'all for checking us out. Real Fans Podcast will be here next week. All the boys in the house. Thank y'all for checking us out. Peace.
Peace out, everybody.
Peace.